two facets. There's the one where there's the human who actually uses content generated AI to utilize, to respond and engage with customers. And then there's the side where they're using chatbots or automated virtual assistants that then you have to wonder, is it a human or is it a robot? And you never want to get to that point. You want to know that it's either a robot or it's a human. And the only way that that happens is if we have human interaction and we use our tone, our emotion, our experience to write our own content. And content meaning emails or even prep for a phone call, right? That's all part of making sure that you are the person that's delivering and not the information that you gather.
You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined by Denise Bachman. Denise, why are you laughing? Come on, I thought I did that well.
Like the Bachman.
Was it a bit too much?
I love it. Go with
it. That's correct then, huh?
Yeah, correct.
Okay,
Yes.
So moving on, you are, well, we were chatting before, I was trying to get my pronunciation right. And so you're founder of Success with AI, is the organization, but you said that you are an AI enthusiast. So, I mean, what a time to be an AI enthusiast. Talk me through some of the sort of enthusiasm pre-ChatGPT, if you can.
Yes. So my enthusiasm started about 15 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer than that, but 15 years or so in the AI machine learning space. And so I sold software for over 30 years. And once I got into the AI space, I realized, wow, this is really awesome. And what was even more cool about the AI before ChatGPT was knowing what was happening behind the scenes that we didn't know about. So, AI has actually been around since the 50s. We just haven't, and we see it progressing so fast now because we just saw the release of ChatGPT and now everything's going gangbusters. But the reality is it's been around for a while, and we have customers, or we have people, organizations out there that have been using it for years for use cases that we can't even imagine, and many that I can't share because a lot of that was the US government, but it was interesting.
Telling us you can't tell us something is the worst you could do. That's cool. Yeah, no, so people have been using it. In fact, I was listening to something about this the other day. Is it a guy called McCarthy, that kind of coined the term artificial intelligence because he needed to call what he was doing something to try and get some support from it. And people kind of got it and now realize that it's probably actually the worst term we could use because it makes out it's kind of fake and not real, and where it very much is, isn't it?
It is kind of not fake and fake and not real, kind of, but it is real. So it's a machine that doesn't seem like it could be real, collecting real data.
Oh, it's very cool. So, and of course, just recently, we're recording April and November last year, it just, everyone went mad, didn't they? And people are still going off their heads all about it, getting very, very excited. But from what I understand, that ChatGPT is just one part that salespeople are using. You're looking at, well, there's loads of other things that companies, organizations can certainly be tapping into. What are some of those biggest things, if it's like more of an organization level rather than the person?
Yeah. So from an organizational perspective, one of the key areas I think is forecasting. If we could get better at forecasting by using AI to look at various different insights that right now, if you think about forecasting, you're relying heavily on your sales rep. And then the sales leader is looking at each individual sales rep and whether or not they're very accurate and having to make their forecast models then fit based on what they know. So it's all around knowledge internal knowledge, and what they should be using or what they could be using now are insightful information that AI can go out and scrape for you. Like, what is the buying intent of this customer? What are some of the, how often does this rep make quota? What is the percentage rate for that? What is the percentage rate going to be based on the economics of the country today? So there are lots of different insights that can take, but let's not get into the specific of that. I guess it probably dove us in a little deeper than we really needed to. But whether it's forecasting or lead nurturing or customer nurturing, or even just overall insights before you tackle an account or an opportunity, those are 4 key areas that I think we could be using AI more efficiently so that we can see better results.
And is this then where people now start to get a bit concerned? I think it's a concern we both share, that if we rely on too much of this, we become a little bit robotic, for want of a better word, ourselves, and we take that kind of humanity out of selling.
Yes.
Is that a valid concern?
Sure, that's a huge concern, because the reality is, I mean, you can go into ChatGPT today and you can put in there, okay, tell my customer I want to say this to my customer. It can generate that, and then you send it over. Well, then that's not really you. That's not your authentic self. Now, you did prompt it, but it doesn't know how to put it in your tone. So most of us, or a lot of us, will instead look at the output and say, okay, well, now I want to take it and actually make it sound like me. So you'll edit it. But there'll be a lot of people who are just either too busy or not knowledgeable enough, or don't understand the value of human interaction. And they'll just take copy and paste that and then put it right into the email, and poof, there you go. Then it isn't really them. It becomes the robot. Now, that's just from a perspective where the human's actually putting the information in. But if you think about virtual digital assistants that are out there today, or chatbots, then you wonder, okay, am I really talking to a human? Is that human? And so maybe it's not the human that's actually doing that. It is actually a machine that's probably, working through that workflow. And you wonder, wow, how much of this is a human and how much of this is a robot or a machine? You don't really know that. So there are 2 facets, I guess. If I were to summarize my answer, there are 2 facets. There's the one where there's the human who actually uses content generated AI to utilize, to respond and engage with customers. And then there's the side where they're using chatbots or automated virtual assistants that then you have to wonder, is it a human or is it a robot? And you never want to get to that point. You want to know that it's either a robot or it's a human. And the only way that happens is if we have human interaction and we use our tone, our emotion, our experience to write our own content. And content meaning emails or even prep for a phone call, right? That's all part of making sure that you are the person that's delivering and not the information that you gathered, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. And that I saw something the other day, and in fact, someone was trying to sell it to me. And I just bit my tongue a little bit. I just thought it was a terrible thing, to be honest, in that it kind of got stuff from LinkedIn. So person's name, job title, looked at ChatGPT to ask it what would be the pains of that job title, to then put it into the email, which it then fired out, of which nobody has ever touched any of it apart from asking it to do all that. But it was with the objective of getting a meeting. So my concern will be then, okay, that might actually work. Well, it might not, but let's pretend it did. And said person now rocks up at the meeting. What good are they going to be?
Yeah, they won't even know what to say, what to do next, how to have the conversation.
Or they could. Well, in that case, why didn't you do it personally before? And probably improve your strike rate of having the conversation anyway. It was all a bit weird, really. And I know, I bit my tongue because I didn't like it.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan either. So, and I love AI, but I just think there's a time and a place for it. And it shouldn't be to replace what we do. It should be to augment or enhance what we do. And I think that's going to be the differentiator, right? Salespeople, basic e-commerce sales, maybe cars, maybe so a lot of the retail sales like cars, those types of things are probably going to go all AI, digital. That's expected. But when you're talking about, six-figure opportunities where you're closing these deals to larger organizations that take, 6 to 8 stakeholders now to buy into, you're going to need that personal touch to do that. And having something generate something for you or give you, it's one thing to use it as a means to research, to prepare you, but it's another for it to be in place of what you're doing.
I think it'd be awesome to prepare you. I mean, I've even seen numbers going up to 12 stakeholders, depending on which figures you're looking at. So going, okay, so that's CTO, CFO, CMO, CEO, I know everyone.
Everyone.
Right.
All
What are they all looking for? What are the pains they experience? What are the things that they were trying to achieve? What pressures are they under to try and achieve that? That's a great use of time spent with an AI to tell you that, to build you a proposition, to then be going and having very intelligent conversations with people having kind of understood where they're coming from. I like that. I think that massively augments you. But you still got to write it personally to them, having picked up on some of those little things that they've said or done, or you're doing to really just try to attract their attention, I guess.
Agree. Well, and if you go back to your example where they put in, well, what could the potential issues be, right? Therein lies, it might get you the initial conversation, not with that C-level, with that persona. It won't get you a conversation with them because people want it to be more personalized. So yes, it'll get you into the lower levels so you can gather the information. So it's great from that respect. But then you really want to, when you target those VP, C-level individuals, decision makers, or those that are true stakeholders, that's where you're going to actually need to take that information that you've gathered from other people within the organization that you have gone and listened to. That's what they're going to want to hear, that truly, not what something ChatGPT or the internet can provide, but what you've uncovered. That's what's going to set you apart and differentiate you. They're going to want to have a conversation with you because you truly understand, not generically, but truly what's happening within their organization. Then you've set yourself apart. Then they'll have the conversation. Then you're closer to moving a deal through the process.
Set yourself apart. Yeah. You're not going to set yourself apart by doing what everyone else is doing because everyone else has got excited about this way of doing something. It is that kind of level of detective work, research, and sort of fine tuning to make it so laser focused that I almost can't say no. It's like, well, you must have really understood me if you probably understand me better than I understand me. Yeah. What I mean, so yeah, there's kind of, it's interesting, isn't it? There's the kind of a real positive potential there, but also kind of real danger. What other dangers do you see, or what are the kind of negative sides, if we're not careful, might come out of some of this?
Well, one of them we talked about was really replacing, but and making it more robotic, less personalized. But I think the other is there's a tremendous amount of misinformation out there. So when you go to, for example, chat, so it's not even about making it more robotic. It's that when you go out there and gather that information, when it renders back the data, so you go to ChatGPT, you put in your parameters, right? It renders back the data. It's not always right.
Yeah.
So you're giving misinformation out and you're perpetuating that because you didn't realize that information was incorrect to begin with because you didn't do enough of your own homework. So it's not even about just being less personalized and robotic, but that you're even providing wrong information. I think that is one of the bigger fears than most anything else out there, is that if you start to build your reputation and your credibility based on misinformation, then you don't have that reputation or credibility to stand on later. And it may not be immediate that people know that, but they'll see it later.
Yeah, it's very convincing, isn't it? Some of the outputs, it's very sure of itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard somebody explain it. I love the expression is, but it does hallucinate sometimes.
Yes. Well, there was just in the news, I can't remember who reported it. There was a professor who was falsely accused of sexual harassment through ChatGPT.
Well, I've not come across that one. No, Mm.
Yes. So he originally, when he saw the data, he thought it was kind of funny and laughed because he knew that that was not him. That, there was no way he had ever been in a predicament where he would have been accused of sexual harassment. But then the more he thought about it, the more he thought, well, this is actually really crazy. This is really terrible. It's no longer funny. This is really serious stuff, because if this is shedding a false accusation for me, can you imagine what it might be doing for others? So this individual had gone in and put in parameters around professors, sexual harassment, and I don't even remember what all of the parameters were, but nonetheless, the information that it rendered back, completely false.
Wow, I'd not heard that. That is scary. That is really scary. For that individual, it must be horrific. It doesn't do their thinking. So okay, I mean we've touched on these. So we want to stay human. Okay. Now we probably shouldn't really have to go through a checklist or kind of put some tips or good ideas of some of the stuff that we need to do, but it might be useful just if while people are listening to this, they're kind of listening to just be aware there's some of the issues. But so just make sure you include this or carry on doing it probably in your day-to-day work. What kind of things do we need to just take into consideration, I think?
That we continue to do, the
Yeah.
things we continue to do as humans. I do think even if you use an automation solution, where I talked about where AI really could be helpful is in the nurturing of leads. I do think that whatever you use as your lead nurturing solution, it is making sure that you're continuously in touch with what that solution is doing. So that if for some reason, Tom, he replied back, but maybe the AI solution didn't get it, or maybe he texted you, right? Instead of responding to the email automation workflow that you've put in there, maybe he texted you, making sure that you are taking into account the interactions that you're having, the activities that are happening, the news, the discussions that you're having. So if you need to alter a workflow, that you do that. So give some room for allowing AI to do some of those mundane tasks for you, but making sure you're consistently checking in and that it's doing what it needs to with all the information that it needs in order to be as effective as possible. Because you may have had a conversation with someone else who gave you more information that you could add to, or you needed to be wary of when sending out the next engagement or setting up the next engagement. So just making sure, for example, in that way, that you are always engaging with, cautious of, and paying attention to the workflows that are out there or the solutions that you're using to make sure that they are functioning and meeting the needs that you need to meet to remain human. The second is, I think that you need to be sure to, as you're automating any of these processes, that you're still engaging on a regular basis. So don't leave the automation solution or the AI solution to do all the work for you. Do some of it on your own so that you can add your quirkiness and yourself into the process, so that when it gets handed off to you, wasn't driven completely by the AI, if that makes any sense. So I think those are two key points to remember. And the third is, make sure that it's really adding value. Don't use an AI solution just to use one. I mean, I get going, there are so many: Jasper AI, Taplio, ChatGPT. ChatGPT. If you want to go in and put in some parameters and render some information back, that's great. Use it every once in a while, but don't use it every day, because after too long, you're going to not have to think anymore. And then you lose the ability to create something on your own. And that's what sets you apart and differentiates you from everyone else, is your experience, your emotion, your intensity, your professionalism, your knowledge. All of those things differentiate yourself from everyone else out there. So make sure you keep that intact.
So building on that, I mean, I've seen suggestions, ideas of creating your social media content using some of these tools. So that sounds like quite a bad idea then, because that is absolutely where you are going to be putting across your intensity, your emotion, your experience, your persona. You get someone else to do that for you, or something. Whoops. Freudian. To do that, you're kind of doing yourself a massive disservice, aren't you?
You are, because it's like getting up and riding a bike. If you haven't ridden a bike in like a week, you may not be as good. You may be a little, well, a week, maybe not, but you get the analogy. Maybe it's like, 6 months, but you don't get on quite as easy the next time if you haven't been on it in a while. So, or running's a good example. You lose the ability to run as fast or as long or at a pace if you're not doing it every day. That being said, if you are utilizing something else to generate your content for you, at some point you're going to sit there and you're going to wonder, what the heck am I supposed to write today? Because you've relied heavily on something else to not only generate the ideas, but as well to generate the actual output. Instead, if you would just take some time, separate yourself from everyone, quiet time, sit there for a few minutes, get in the right mind space, and then just start to generate some content yourself, you'll find that your content will be much better than if you rely heavily on AI. And look, I'm an AI enthusiast. I love AI. But I don't use it to generate my content, because my fear is that I will not be able to generate my own after a while. And the other is it doesn't represent me. Gives me a little bit of, and the third, let's not forget the third is could be incorrect.
As well. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is why it's such a fascinating conversation, because someone might, if you're tuned in halfway, it sounds like we might be calling out AI and dismissing it and be really anti. I love it. I think it's so interesting. You're an AI enthusiast, but we're just saying, hey, just be a bit careful here and use it to augment the human, to help you, not replace, not to take you over.
Exactly.
And certainly don't do yourself out of a job by over relying, because that last scenario I could see where it becomes a bit of a vicious circle, doesn't it? I can't think what to say. I'll turn to my mate, ChatGPT. He or she will tell me what to put. I'll fire that straight out because I've worked out how to actually sound pretty cool. Because I know some people say it doesn't sound very good. Well, tell it to sound good then.
Yeah.
It's the answer
Just
to
give it
that,
more parameters.
write it well, but I think you can always get addicted to that, I guess. Going, oh, it's dead easy. I'm pushing loads of stuff out there. I'm getting some responses. And then someone meets you, is what you're saying, and they go, well, you're nothing like that other person
Yeah.
that's put themselves out there.
Yes, exactly. I agree. I think we get too caught. I mean, it's like chewing gum. If you chew gum every day, you don't realize whether or not you're smacking most of the time because it's become a habit. You're just chewing the gum, right? It's kind of like ChatGPT or any other content AI solution. You give it information, you put it in, you generate it, you get it out, and then you're like, okay, the next day, and then it just becomes a habit, and you forget then how to actually think on your own, because like the gum, you don't realize that you don't realize you're smacking, and because you don't know how to, it's just innate what repetition, habit.
Yeah, habits, which is just what I do. It's how I do it. I build myself my own little flow to become reliant on it. Interesting. So one of the other questions that I really wanted to ask is that in your title, you refer to yourself then as a sales culture cultivator. So I just wanted to explore that a little bit more, what you meant by that.
Yeah, so I have always been known as a culture cultivator in general. So I don't know what it is about myself, but I'm really good at building a culture of community around me. I think it takes, for me, it was caring about the people around me. I always believe you're only as strong as your weakest link. So tapping into your resources and your team of resources, enabling them to be a part of the process. So everyone wins together, everyone loses together. So cultivating a sales culture that creates this small community around you that ensures your success. And so I don't know, I've just always been really good at it. And and all the things that I talk about, it's how do you improve upon yourself, but how do you tap into the resources? And the resources are not just AI, it's people as well. How do you create a community with them so they're all in it with you? That's cultivating a cultivated sales culture.
All right. Power community. Community is huge. Community is huge.
Huge.
I know. Certainly, I've gone through a lot of learning myself in the last couple of years, and it's been the community I mean, yeah, I've had some excellent coaches, trainers who've given some good lessons, but it's the communities that they've set up and kind of how they work where I've just got so much from that. Hanging out with people who try to achieve the same thing and, similar sort of challenges. It's been awesome.
Exactly. Well, if you think about it, coaches, they don't always practice everything they preach, but they try to teach you, right? I mean, hell, we're all coaches, right? I have some clients that I'm sure I could probably improve upon in one area, but I'm teaching them how to do it, right? But if you're in a community, people are actually doing the things right then and there, right? They're in the real world at that very moment along with you, and they're sharing their stories and their successes and things that could potentially help you. Community, they will help you become more knowledgeable. They'll help you put into play the things you've practiced. They will give you new ideas that you can actually take on as your own, and they'll even play along with you to see whether or not, what you're doing is beneficial or not, and give you good feedback. I
Yeah.
mean, community is amazing.
Oh, it is. I say, I'll off air, I'll show you a couple of the really good ones I've been part of. But I love
But let
that.
me qualify that by saying coaches are amazing, though. I have some really amazing coaches. So just different, you get something different out of coaching than you do out of community. So
Well, actually, I know we're jumping around a little bit now, but I actually have a robot coach, which I've had for a little while,
okay.
probably about 2 years. I've used Rocky, which is for a morning mindset chat and
Oh,
an
okay.
evening reflection. So
Oh,
rather than me asking it a question, the AI asks me a question. I then respond to it, getting my brain going. Yeah, and depending on the answer, it will then respond back with another question, like a coach
that's
would.
very cool.
And that's been around for a couple of years now. I've been using that. Yeah.
That's
Oh, it's
very
lovely.
cool. I never knew that existed.
Rocky.ai. It's awesome. Awesome little bit of kit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
And
gonna look.
but a very easy way to do 5 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, stimulate the brain. Stimulate the brain. Now, you could just say, yeah, but it's AI. It's not really alive, is it? It doesn't understand these things. But treating it as it is there to stimulate me and my real human brain, which needs all the help it can get, to be honest.
We
Certainly
all
first
need a
thing in the
little help.
morning. Yeah. No, it's a really decent bit of kit. It's like a different application. That's been around for a bit. Yeah, it's good.
I didn't know that. I'm gonna have to look into that. I use just a notebook or a book because I think mindset is important, or mind space. And so I use a book, a journal that poses those same questions, but it doesn't it's not audible ready. So where you're saying that Rocky.ai is somewhat audible ready in that it'll listen to, and then based on the way you responded, it
Yeah.
will then ask you the next question. Mine is, the same generated questions every single morning and every single night, right? And it's not audible ready. They're the same. It doesn't really matter how I answer any of them. They're all the same, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Your
pretty
mood
cool.
changes and what you're trying to do with answering those questions is it's the intent. I mean, these things work as well as you kind of want them to. If you really want them to work, if you know why you're doing it, and then that's yeah, that makes sense for that. So I don't know, we're digressing slightly, but this is part of the fun. This is part of the fun. Yeah, we could call me just all AI, can we?
No,
It's a bit,
no.
bit kind of human. What? I mean, again, you've been around salespeople a long time. You've worked with salespeople. You are a salesperson. Um, what other stuff would you say it's important to be successful in sales?
One of the things that I'm seeing, and I'm sure you are as well, especially with your focus in the C-level, is these sales reps are not enabled enough that they really truly understand how to sell value. So getting in there and understanding where the problems really are, instead of feature versus function or selling to one use case, it's really understanding what their core problems are, how that relates to their objectives as an organization and their initiatives, and how can you create a solution that provides tremendous of value, not for just one use case, but multiple different use cases, and meeting one of the main key objectives or initiatives that the organization has. Because right now, I think we all get too super excited, especially with the economy the way it is. A lot of salespeople go in with an idea of what their ideal persona might be, what some of the use cases or problems are that they're solving to. They'll get in there, they'll have a conversation, they'll find someone who maybe likes this idea, but in the end, what they realize after going through a process was it didn't fit into the overall initiative. While they might have been able to solve a problem, it wasn't large enough for them to purchase any solution, because there were multiple other problems that they needed to resolve first before they resolved this one. And so I think really truly understanding the value that you can bring by asking all the right questions. So I guess to sum all of that up, it's really having a sales rep who understands how to sell with value, but curiously, like asking questions. I mean, you don't get one answer and then quit your line of questioning. You get one answer and then you dive in and ask them another question on top of that, kind of like your Rocky AI, right? You continue to continuously be audible ready so that you can ask more and more questions until you've asked so many that there's not a single question left to ask, right?
Do you think perhaps this is because in certain parts there is a tendency towards trying to do disco demo as fast as you possibly can to get more done?
I'm
I'm pretty sure it is actually. It's a bit of a rhetorical question. And that equally, I've just been talking about this, funny enough, before we start recording, that people's listening, they don't skim listen. They're better than that. They don't survey listen. Again, they're slightly better than that, but they don't really actively listen. There's more of this kind of level 3, which is this search listening where, oh, you've said something that I wanted you to say. Right. That's my invitation to jump in and start talking about all my stuff, rather than tell me more, and what else, and what else, and what else. Yeah, I think that's probably an issue.
I think that's a huge issue with a lot of people, unfortunately. And, I think it makes me really sad, because the sales profession as a whole is not looked upon as a very noble or high profession overall, because one, you've got AI now and it's looking at replacing a lot of the sales reps activities, right? Or so everyone thinks could potentially replace, right? Which we know that's not ideal and that's not the way it should happen, nor will I think it will ever happen for some of these larger deals that we are talking about, the salespeople that service those larger deals. But I think in general, if you think about AI is taken and e-commerce and automation, it's taken out a lot of the responsibility of sales reps. And then you've got an economy where, it's not doing super well. So everyone's tightening their reins. And then you just have all of this noise with everything that's happening in the world, that sales reps are just, another person not high on my priority list. And that's because we've put ourselves in that position. We've not enabled, I think the percentage rate, and you can probably tell me better, Fred, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I want to say 80% of the sales reps, once they're enabled, 80% of them lose that knowledge within the first 30 to 90 days. So their lack of retention as it relates to enabled educated, knowledgeable information that the company provides you lose that in a very short span of time, unless you continuously enable. And continuously enabling also means making sure that they get better at elevating themselves, so that we are a noble profession. We are looked upon. And noble keeps coming back from Marcus. Marcus talks about noble all the time, right? But it really is true. I mean, the fact that we've lost this respect for sales because we've not enabled our sales reps to be the best that they possibly can be. And they all have that ability to be their best. We just don't enable them to actually do that well, that being curious, selling that value, human touch, building relationships, all those things that it takes. I think we've missed out on that. It's very sad.
No, it is very sad. I mean, if people aren't speaking salespeople because they're just not getting any value from it, like you say, because they're not helping the customer to think. Put yourself in the position where you start helping the customer to think, make sense of stuff. You're very valuable. You'll get called in. It'll be like, hey, Denise, please come and speak to us. Why? Because whenever you do, you always leave us loads of homework, but it's really good stuff. And we do better for it. Cool. Whereas it's, God, Fred, you come in and you just It's like a website, except websites are better. At least it knows all the latest stuff, and you just keep regurgitating. So,
Uh-huh.
we can go down sort of those routes, and certainly the helping people think, be the sense maker, is a way a way better version. I'd suggest, or we'd suggest.
I agree. I mean, I think if you, the way I would probably sum all that probably up is if you can get the customer to drive themselves to the solution that they need to solve and which problems they are trying to solve, if you have them take you on that journey, you will be much more successful than if you take them down. And I think that's where the problem lies. We are teaching them or not teaching them such that they are trying to drive the customer there instead of the customer driving us.
Yeah, only they've only kind of got one route, which is to do it like that. I think a good salesperson can do either, and they can read the game in front of them, to use a sports analogy, and decide, well, this is the way I'm going to play. In this case, I do have to lead. But the customer cannot take themselves. It's my job to do that. Or this customer's got control of this stuff. Right, okay, I can go with them and kind of align into what it is they're trying to do and do a good job by doing that as well. I can flex.
Yes,
I'm
I
happy with
like
that. Yeah.
I agree.
Anything else as we draw to a close? I can't believe time's gone so fast. Anything
Okay.
else as we draw to a close that's just worth people thinking about? We've gone all over the shop here, but it's great. I love it. I
We
love these
have
kind
gone
of
all
podcasts.
over.
They're superb though, because there's like every single bit is valuable, I think. So, anything else? Any other last little nuggets of value you sort of share?
Well, you and I were talking about this at the start before you hit record. And one of the things, if we talk about, the human interaction and sales as a more noble profession, as Marcus deems it, right, or coins it, I think that one of the things that I would love to maybe leave as a takeaway is it really all does begin with mind space. And we have to feel empowered. We have to get out of this feeling like we have to rely on something else to do all the work for us, like an AI solution. We have to feel empowered, and we have to be in a mind space that is, hey, I can get my stuff done because I am strong, knowledgeable, credible, valuable, and I can, and I'm working towards my vision. And if you have all those things in and you take all those things into account every day, I think it will drive your success. Mind space, positive mind space.
Whether you're using Rocky
Yes.
or a journal, a real pen, or any other, there's lots of ways to do that, aren't there? It's not just the two
Yes.
ways that you and I choose, but yeah, your mind space, your vision, aligned to your purpose, going to work becomes much more fun.
Yeah.
And you get much
And
better at it, don't you?
it'll make your whole life, it'll make your whole experience and all of your interactions with all of your clients just so much more fun and invigorating. And you'll walk away every day happy if you're living with an open mind space and towards your vision.
Agreed, 100%. So, where can people get in touch with you or sort of find out more about what you're going to get up to?
So right now, my main focus is on LinkedIn, but I've got a lot of new stuff coming out. So hopefully you'll see all that on LinkedIn soon. But if you want to find me anywhere, LinkedIn at Denise Martha Bachman.
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 That's super. Thank you so much. We'll pop a link to that into the show notes. Thank you so much for your time. It's been fun chatting. We moved around a little bit, but lots of interesting food for thought in there. So if anyone connects with you, just let Denise know that you'd heard this podcast and which bit really stood out for you.
And thank you. I feel so honored and I appreciate you. And I appreciate everyone taking the time to listen. So thank you.
Oh, cheers, Denise. Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the Collaborative Selling Scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.